Thank you for being here, and especially thank you to Commissioner McGrath and Commissioner Kos for being here today and for taking such strong interest in today's Council meeting. Our meeting today has been devoted to enlargement. We are living in challenging times. The Russians' war of aggression against Ukraine and the new political winds blowing from the US makes enlargement more important today, perhaps than ever before. It's a new relevance of enlargement. It has gained a new momentum. It's not just something that is relevant. We need to move on with enlargement. It is a geopolitical necessity because we need to have a stronger EU, a more secure EU, an EU that is capable of defending itself. And enlargement is essential for that future. Our discussions today have not been focusing on country-specific negotiations. We have used this informal setting to have a more strategic discussion on enlargement, how we can accelerate the enlargement procedure while still upholding the merit-based approach. We have been discussing the Copenhagen criteria. Even though that the Copenhagen criteria are more than 30 years old, they are still very relevant today, also relevant for the existing member states. Upholding the Copenhagen criteria and the fundamental values is what makes Europe strong and attractive. And therefore, we have also discussed today how we can strengthen the compliance with the rule of law within the EU. Last but not least, we've also discussed the need for internal reform, and there is broad consensus that EU must also prepare itself for enlargement and the future challenges. I am very encouraged to see the broad consensus on this strategic direction for EU, and therefore I am very optimistic. And now I will give the floor to Commissioner Kos.
Thank you so much, Minister de Marie, and thank you to the Danish presidency to put enlargement really on the top of Europe's agenda. You've been mentioning Copenhagen criteria. Those criteria in the past have enabled very successful enlargement, and we should build on this also for the future enlargements. And a word of thanks also to you, dear Michael. Your work on rule of law and democratic resilience is central to a credible enlargement process and actually to the whole European Union. I am happy that today's discussions were very concrete, also forward-looking, and we focused on how enlargement strengthens Europe's security. You've been mentioning a new geopolitical momentum. And they are also, you know, it's about prosperity and it's about resilience. And together with the candidate countries, thank you for inviting also the foreign ministers of the candidates. We discussed the conditions for successful reforms and how we can make citizens of the future member states feel EU benefits before their countries will become a member of the EU. As has been mentioned, EU enlargement has become somehow entangled in this geopolitical contest between free democratic societies on one side and the authoritarian regimes on the other sides. And we see this, of course, most brutally in Ukraine, but we see it also in a more subtle hybrid ways in other candidate countries, such as the Republic of Moldova, where they will have parliamentary elections at the end of September. And we really see huge engagement financially from the side of Russia to bring the Republic of Moldova away from the European path. And this is why I often refer, when I speak about the enlargement, that it is much more than the enlargement itself. For me, it is really about the unification of Europe, where we will be able to secure security of all of us only by integration of them into the Union. And only a Europe that can stand up to secure our continent will be then stable and safe also in the future. And my message today is that the doors of our Union are open, and those doors will stay open for those who meet the Copenhagen criteria fully, fairly, and also transparently. And because one thing comes out very clearly from today's discussion, successful enlargement does not come with a geopolitical discount. If our union is to become stronger, and in this case it is also about us, not only about the candidate countries, accession will remain, I am a guarantor for this, a strict, fair and merit-based process, fully dependent on the objective progress achieved by each candidate country. And here I have to say that I am, even if I'm strict, I am also optimistic, and the things are moving faster than at any point in the last 15 years. For instance, Montenegro and Albania stand as front runners. Negotiations are progressing steadily and firmly. Ukraine and Moldova are now in the final process to finish the screening of all 6 clusters, so just in 1 year. And this is also a success. When somebody are arguing that it is not going, it is really moving a lot and as fast as never before. So both countries have done their homework, and both countries are ready to start negotiations on the cluster 1. Ukraine did remarkable progress in extremely difficult circumstances. It is for the first time in the history of the EU that we have a candidate country which is at war, and the latest escalation of Russian attack is casting serious doubts about Russia's willingness to move to peace. It strengthens our determination to support Ukraine in all possible ways. At the same time, Ukraine must continue implementing its commitments to the EU, especially in the area of the rule of law and anti-corruption. Today we also discussed ways to advance in accession negotiations despite bilateral concerns of some member states, while respecting the negotiation framework and the prerogative of the Council. In this regard, the Commission has simplified already certain steps in the accession negotiations within the limits of the accession methodology. But of course, the Commission is also open to further improvements subject to consent in the Council. Another important point, of course, no enlargement can be successful if it is not matched by support at home. I presented the results of a new special Eurobarometer on enlargement published today. And the results confirm the upward trend of public support for enlargement since the war in Ukraine. So taking care about our security has increased pro-enlargement sentiments. Also here in Denmark, the average of the EU 27, it's 56%, meaning 56% of our citizens are in favor of further enlargement, with the highest support here in the north of Europe, and especially congratulations Denmark being on the top together with Sweden. Nearly 80% of your citizens are supporting the enlargement. And I'm especially thrilled that around 2/3 of the young people are in favor of expanding our union. But of course, we have done this survey to see what we have to do more, and there is plenty to do more. We need to bring support in all EU member states above 50%. It is not at the time being, and there is clear demand for more demand for information for the citizens. 67% do not feel they have enough information. So there is a lot of work for me as a commissioner, together with our delegations and representations, and of course also with the member states, especially with the presidencies. And these surveys are our springboard. We also discussed with ministers how to build on these positive trends. Why is this important? There is really too much at stake. Enlargement is a strategic investment in a stable, democratic and competitive Europe with benefits for all citizens, and it contributes to peace, prosperity and a more united continent. But this story must be told from big cities to the tiniest village. And with this, you know, that Europe is a peace project, we go somehow back to the roots of why the EU has been established at all. Therefore, addressing our citizens' concerns is crucial. It reiterates the importance to making our union fit also to welcome new members. Enlargement readiness and EU readiness are the same project. So together with my colleagues, we exchange, as you have said, the ideas, Marie, on the Commission's sectoral pre-enlargement reviews, ways to make decision-making more effective under the current treaties. And I will finish that this is a twin track: enlarge and prepare at the same time. By advancing both together, we protect the credibility of the process, we keep public support on our side and make Europe stronger, safer and more competitive.
Thank you very much, Mary, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Marta, for those kind remarks as well. It's great to be here in Copenhagen for the informal General Affairs Council. Thank you for the invitation. I was here back in May for the Democracy Summit, and I stood on this podium with your colleague Peter at the Justice informal meeting back in July. But great to be here again and to have an opportunity to discuss with Mary and all of her colleagues at the GAC about the importance of rule of law and how we might look to reform and indeed strengthen the rule of law architecture that we have within the European Union, drawing on the experience that we have gained over the last number of years. We all recognise how fundamental the rule of law is as a bedrock of the European Union, as the gateway that gives us freedom, that gives us our democracy, and that affords us the opportunity for equality. And also it is an essential ingredient in a successful European economy. And that is why this year in the annual Rule of Law report published back in July, we included a single market dimension for the very first time. So it was great to have the opportunity today to listen to colleagues from around the European Union to discuss the steering note that Mary had prepared and circulated to all of the member states. And so we looked at how to best prevent breaches of the rule of law in member states in the first place, and then when they do happen, how do we best address them and indeed reverse them once they have taken place. As Mary has said, Commissioner Kos contributed to a discussion on the Copenhagen criteria for enlargement, and of course one of these criteria is to guarantee the rule of law alongside democracy, respect for human rights and indeed the protection of minorities. And that is why last year we expanded the Rule of Law report to include 4 enlargement countries to help them prepare for entry to the European Union. We continued with the same 4 enlargement countries in the 2025 report, but I would hope that from next year we can begin to expand it to other enlargement countries as and when they are ready. It is the duty of our member states to fully embrace the rule of law, uphold it and also to promote it. And as you know, in recent years, the Commission, working closely with the co-legislators, has developed a strong toolbox to respond and to address rule of law issues. The Rule of Law report has used a transparent and objective methodology over the last number of years to analyse the situation in every member state, to present a picture of developments, both positive and negative, and to provide recommendations where appropriate. And as I said, this year we have the new innovation of looking at the economic dimension of rule of law, which is a really important issue. The 2025 report now forms the basis of the Council's ongoing rule of law dialogue, and the next round of country-specific discussions will take place at the next meeting of the General Affairs Council later this month. And as I've said on many occasions, while our first port of call is dialogue when issues arise, we have to be prepared to stand firm and to take enforcement action where required. And we do have tools to do so, ranging from the Article 7 procedure, which many member states contributed to a discussion on that aspect of the toolbox today, and also infringement proceedings, budget conditionality, the horizontal enabling condition in the Charter of Fundamental Rights. And today's discussion was very open and very frank as we look to the future, and as we look to the proposals that we as a Commission brought forward back in July as part of the draft MFF that we brought forward and indeed published, which is consistent with what President von der Leyen set out in her political guidelines last year, that respect for the rule of law is a must for EU funds, and this must mean stronger safeguards, greater accountability, and a link, critically, between the recommendations in the Rule of Law report and financial support. And that is why in our proposed MFF for the period 2028 to 2034, we are proposing that the general regime of conditionality would continue, but also that as part of the national and regional partnership plans, that we would have an additional safeguard that links rule of law and respect for the Charter of Fundamental Rights with access to EU funds. And so I took the opportunity today just to set out at this stage our thoughts on that issue and to hear the views of Member States in that regard as well. And it was a very open and very constructive discussion, I felt, in that regard. Today's discussions focused on strengthening the rule of law toolbox, but the Commission's work on upholding the rule of law does not stop there. As you know, just last month, the European Media Freedom Act became applicable. It is a landmark instrument to strengthen and support free and pluralistic media across the European Union. And we are currently working on the proposed European Democracy Shield, which we will bring forward later this year. And also we are developing the first ever EU civil society strategy as well. By strengthening the rule of law as the foundation of our union, we will ensure that the EU of today, but also that of the future, remains one centred on freedom, democracy and equality. So thank you for your attention to those remarks, and I'll hand it back to you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you. Eddie Wax with Euractiv. I have a question for each of the two European Commissioners, not meaning to miss you out, but for Commissioner Kos, today the poll that you released suggested that 64% of the population in Hungary is actually against Ukraine joining the EU. What's your plan for convincing Hungarians that actually could be a good idea? And would you be ready to accept, ready to propose changes to the way that decisions are made on enlargement in the European Union? At the moment, it's by unanimity, but could you be ready to change the rules, as some countries like Sweden, Slovenia, Germany are proposing to make it only by majority? And also, what are the next steps? You mentioned at the doorstep that Ukraine needs to come up with next steps on its anti-corruption reforms. Could you tell me what those steps are? And then to Commissioner McGrath, you signed a letter about a week ago on Gaza with 3 other commissioners, saying that Gaza was the primary focus of the European Commission, and that you were coming up with fresh ideas. Tomorrow there's a college meeting. If it's the primary focus of the Commission, why were you only 4 out of 27 commissioners signing that letter? And what specifically are those ideas that you and the other 3 have, and will you talk about them tomorrow? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
The number you have mentioned, 64%, is the opposite. So this is the percentage of the citizens of Hungary who are generally supporting the enlargement. And only 30% of the citizens of Hungary are supporting enlargement with Ukraine. So 60% in favor generally for the enlargement, and only 30% supporting Ukraine. Just to compare, the Swedish support, which is the highest one for Ukraine, is 91, Finnish 81, and Danish 81. So this are the results. So one is a general number for enlargement in general, and then we have also measured sentiments, pro-enlargement sentiments for in each member state for each candidate countries. Of course, it is important that we know what is the sentiment of the citizens. It is also important that we consider the concerns of the member states when we speak about the enlargement process. Therefore, we really invest a lot of energy that we will be able soon, I hope in the times of the Danish presidency, to open Cluster 1 and all the other clusters. As I was saying before, for the first time in the history, in 1 year, we are ready to open all the clusters when the conditions are, of course, met. And both the Danish minister and myself have had many meetings in those days. Also the last days when we had Gimnich here speaking to especially to the representatives of Moldova and Ukraine and the member states to find the solution to be able to open. About your question about the decision-making process, yes, I got the letter from some member states. It is about the Council. And also the decision on how can we go on, when can we open the Cluster 1 is in the Council. I can only say that from the technical point of view, we are ready, and that the opinion of the European Commission is that both countries, Moldova and Ukraine, have done their homework, are ready. And we say all the time that it is merit-based process. And because it is merit-based process, I hope that the Council will soon find the way to go on.
Thank you, Marta.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for your question. First of all, we were replying to a letter that was sent to us as named commissioners, and so that is why it was the 4 commissioners to whom the letter was addressed that responded in our own name, including EVP Ribera. And we did work on the draft together because we had to make sure we were all happy with the reply, but it was a reply to us as named commissioners. The situation in Gaza is catastrophic. It is absolutely heartbreaking to see the scenes that are unfolding there, and I think we all agree that the killing has to stop immediately. We have seen aid workers, journalists, healthcare workers, civilians killed, and this must stop. Gaza needs to be urgently flooded with aid. That needs to happen to prevent and deal with the starvation that unfortunately is reaching tragic proportions. It has to be dealt with immediately, and we have discussed these issues at the college meeting of the Commission on a number of occasions, and I think all commissioners have contributed on a number of occasions and set out their points of view. And as you know, the Commission doesn't set foreign policy on behalf of the European Union. The overall foreign policy of the EU on the situation in the Middle East is that there should be a stop to the violence, that there should be a ceasefire at least, that all of the hostages should be released immediately, that we need unhindered access for humanitarian aid at scale to Gaza immediately, and that all of that, if it happens, will provide a foundation where at least we can work together with the international community towards the ultimate goal of a two-state solution. So that is the policy of the European Union, which we fully support, and the HRVP has spoken on issues such as the illegal settlements in the West Bank, for example, that they must stop, and indeed that the people of Gaza deserve a future without Hamas. So we need to approach all of these issues collectively, and it is also the case that we do need to see unity of approach and unity of purpose at EU level. And we did point out in the letter that arising from the review of the EU-Israel Association Agreement, the Commission did make a proposal, a form of sanction against Israel as such. and that was, I think, on the 27th of July that was made 5 weeks ago, and it has not yet been agreed. There hasn't been sufficient support from the body of member states at council level, so it is a reflection of the fact that there isn't consensus within the European Union, and the Commission has a role to play. It is doing its best within its own legal mandate as set out in the treaties. I know that both President von der Leyen and the HRVP Kaja Kallas are working every day to bring about an improvement in the situation on the ground in Gaza, and that is fundamentally what we all profoundly want to see happen as quickly as possible, and we will do everything we can to support that.
Alex Maxia from ANSA, the Italian news agency. There was mention specifically about Montenegro and about Albania, but there wasn't mention about North Macedonia or the other Balkan countries. I was wondering if there was any sort of timeline that you have in mind for them to be able to potentially join the EU. There was mention of 2030. Is that still a realistic goal for all countries or just for Albania and Montenegro? What is the situation like?
Thank you. I was mentioning just 2 countries now at the press conference, but at the ministerial, we were speaking about all the countries. We had also representatives from all the countries. I have mentioned those 2 countries because they are most advanced. As you know, Montenegro has already opened all the clusters, so we are just closing. And the realistic perspective is from the technical point of view that we could finish with the negotiations at the end of next year, 26, meaning if we see the average time of the ratification of the accession treaties 1 to 2 years, then Montenegro could become a member, 28th member of the EU in 2028. For Albania, we have just 2 clusters more to open. And this will happen in the autumn time. So from the next year on, we will also be it's not only, it's a lot of work to be able to close the chapter. But if we do this that way, and Albania is really doing the reforms very well, then we could finish from the technical point of view the negotiations at the end of 27. So yes, still in the time of this present Commission, Albania could become a member of the EU. For the rest, it's always for all of them, it is merit-based. What we clearly see is now that if the leadership of the candidate country is really engaged and has been able to show to the citizens the benefits of the enlargement, then also reforms are going well. And perhaps sometimes we do not stress this enough, the role of the leadership, meaning that, for me, how can they come to so-called soft point when the people, the citizens will feel it is really happening. And for instance, we have also, I was introducing today, made a survey in the candidate countries, how much they support the EU membership. And in Albania, it's 91%. It is the highest percentage. In Montenegro, it is 64%. So we were discussing also with other countries. We have to solve some bilateral issues, and I hope we will be, as soon as the government of North Macedonia will change the constitution, be able to go on. With Bosnia, we are really just waiting for some steps they have to do, the reform, naming the chief negotiator. Then we will be also able to go on. And of course, some other candidates, they have been also here. But once again, back to your question, if it's possible until 2030, it depends mostly on the ability of doing the reforms in their countries, and of course getting also, this is another part, the political confirmation from the member states.
A follow-up and then we move on.
It's a sort of separate question about democratic resilience. You mentioned that that this was one of the priorities. Are there any concrete measures planned to counter disinformation campaigns, and which measures are those?
Well, there's a lot of ongoing work in that area, but what we are looking at now as part of the Democracy Shield proposal is what more we need to do. So we are examining the existing structures that are there to see if they're working effectively. Do we need anything new by way of structure or indeed changes, or is it simply better coordination and more efficient cooperation? But that said, there is practical support being provided in the here and now to the countries that are really on the front line of these challenges, including Moldova, where the elections are happening later this month, and there is direct support through the Rapid Alert System, through the External Action Service to Moldova and others to face the threats that are there at the moment.
Thank you. Claus Dyr, Fagpressebureauet. Allow me 3 questions to each of you. First, Marta Kos. The Commission seems to be hesitating with comments concerning Serbia. What is your actual comment? And to McGrath, concerning rule of law, do you have any new initiatives concerning Hungary or other countries? And finally, Marie-Pierre, Robert Fico is shaking hands with Vladimir Putin. What is your comment to that?
Okay, good. Thank you. If you don't mind, I will start. That is not sending a good signal. It is important for the EU to stay aligned in the foreign common security policy. And obviously, it is not sending a good signal for the European Union. That is not something we have been discussing today. Today, we have been discussing how we can move on with enlargement for the candidate countries that are in line with the common foreign and security policy. That is a key to become a member of the EU Union.
Regarding Serbia, no, we are not hesitating at all. We are very critical. And we are in a constant exchange with the new Serbian government. There are some reforms they have to deliver. They have delivered 3 on the media law. They still have to deliver reforms, what we agreed already in April on the electoral system. And of course, we expect also that they will include civil society organizations in the accession process. And we all support Serbian way on the membership of the EU, but they have to deliver too. And of course, we are also concerned about the free media. So our task is to support them, and we are doing them. At the same time, they have to deliver, especially on the, generally speaking, rule of law and anti-corruption and free media.
In relation to Hungary, we are continuing to engage with Hungarian authorities on a number of specific files. You'll be aware that we are awaiting judgments from the Court of Justice on 2 of them we would expect in the coming months, and those will be significant judgments. And we are in direct contact and have been for a while now with Hungarian authorities on this freedom of assembly law, and in particular on the use of facial recognition, potential GDPR data protection breaches arising from that. And once our assessment has been concluded, we will then decide on next steps and make the announcement at that point. But in the context of the next MFF, our focus is on the overall framework and the architecture, which will be relevant for Hungary, but also the other 26 member states. And that is building that closer link between the recommendations in the Rule of Law report and access to EU funding. And that will be through the national and regional partnership plans. And we've published our proposals, and we will now engage with the co-legislators over the period ahead as we finalise what is the appropriate architecture for the next 7 years on rule of law.
Yes, thank you, and it's for you, Marie. Sorry, commissioners. But we can keep it in English. this being Copenhagen and talking about enlargement, and Denmark's had quite a history in this field. It doesn't seem you're going to make it this time on enlargement during this presidency. But I was wondering, could you make, just for the statement of it, what would you see as the realistic year for Ukraine to join the European Union?
So indeed, the Copenhagen criteria are very important, and it is quite special to be here in Copenhagen today to discuss enlargement where the Copenhagen criteria was made. The theme of today's discussion has been from Copenhagen to Copenhagen to Copenhagen. We don't foresee that we will have a new Copenhagen criteria or that we will have a new Big Bang, a new enlargement as we did in 2002. However, today we were gathered here today to discuss the renewed momentum of enlargement. And that is the key point. Enlargement today is not just relevant, it is something we need, and it is regarded, it is seen in a new view than before. Now it is a matter of security, stability, that Europe needs to be stronger. It's a geopolitical necessity. Regarding the time perspective, we hesitate, we won't in the Council put an end date, a goal on when we need to, when the candidate countries can become a member, because it's up to the candidate countries too. They need to deliver, they need to reform, and that's what we've been discussing today. How can we accelerate the enlargement procedure while still upholding the merit-based approach? Because EU will not be stronger if the candidate countries do not deliver. As I answered just before, like one of the things is that you have to be 100% in line with the common foreign security policy. The countries need to live up to a lot of criteria. So when they live up to those criteria, they can become a member of the EU. And meanwhile, we will help them to live up with those criteria.
May I add something? Yeah, thank you, Marie. It's, once they are our candidates, it's our task to help them. So we help them on the technical level. There are more than 1,000 people in Brussels on different horizontal level working just for one candidate country. And of course, we have financial instruments. We have Ukraine facility for Ukraine, growth plan for Moldova, growth plan for Western Balkans. So when we are demanding, as you have said, and they have to deliver, we are also there to help. And it is our responsibility to prepare them that when they will be in the position to become a member of the EU, that they will make our union stronger, not weaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the question, and that's end this press conference. Thank you very much for showing up.
Thank you all. Have a good day.